Welcome, everyone. We are live here in my bedroom, of course. Welcome to the latest episode of the Jayden Bryce Show, the show where we talk about the hottest topics in the world of sports. We had a great Sunday slate yesterday, and I cannot wait to get to tomorrow's action with you all. Had a lot of great games yesterday. The 4 o'clock window, Eastern time, was absolutely abysmal. But man, that 1 o'clock window was very, very, very good alongside Sunday Night Football. So we're going to discuss a couple of games from the 1 o'clock window. We got Patriots-Bucs, Bills-Dolphins, Falcons. That was the 9 o'clock game for us over here on East Coast, over there in Dublin. We're going to talk about that as well, and we're going to talk about some Ravens-Vikings, JJ McCarthy, Josh Allen. We just got a lot to get to today, and then we're going to follow it up with last night's action between the Chargers and the Steelers, and we'll end it off with my pretty much preview going into tonight's matchup between the Eagles and the Packers. But before we dive into all of that, ladies and gentlemen, do not forget to like, subscribe, and follow my podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I hope you all are enjoying the pod. I'm having fun talking and discussing everything and all these subjects with you guys. But of course, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into today's show. You all know that last week I discussed in the Patriots and Bucs game, I was like, okay, if the Patriots win this game, you can have all these type of storylines. You can say, okay, the Patriots are legit. The coach, Mike Vrabel, should win Coach of the Year. And they have an argument for the number 1 seed. Well, yesterday, the Patriots pretty much answered the call. Are the New England Patriots legit? And I said, and I took away from this game, I was like, absolutely. When we went back to the Buffalo game, we could have said that, oh, that game was a fluke. Drake May was pretty good. You know, not pretty good. Actually, Drake May in that game was great. You had a couple of connections there with, Stephon Diggs went off and the defense played very well. And a lot of people were coming away with that game. Oh, that game could have been a fluke. So going into this game, I said it last week, I was wanting to see how is Drake May going to respond. This is going to be the biggest game that he's going to play, arguably until they play the Ravens later on in the season. But this was the game. 1 o'clock. Tampa Bay coming off of a bye. And Drake May and the New England Patriots went in there and done a job. Outside of the one turnover that Drake May had, I thought the Patriots played a very well game. They looked like they had the better coach yesterday, Mike Vrabel. They looked like they had the better defense. And they looked like yesterday they had the overall better team. This is not a knock on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a good team. But it seems like when I watch the Patriots, this season, I've just gravitated more towards them because of one individual, and his name is Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel has set a culture that is super contagious. When Tony Romo and them, they were doing the call yesterday, they were really emphasizing and pointing out Mike Vrabel. Every time each one of his players got hurt, he was going out there and holding their hand. He showed them on the sideline, giving the defense a speech and things of that nature. This feels like a football that is not just a football team. It's a business. It's a family. And they are locked in. They done the post-show interview with Drake May. I think the lady's name is Tracy Wolf or something like that. She asked Drake May roughly, she was like, Drake, are you looking forward to next week's matchup? And she was talking about how the Bills dropped the game, this, that, and the third. And Drake May just cut all that out and was like, nah, we're not worried about that. We're worried about next week, our next matchup, and we want to continue to get better. There is so much to love about this team. You have the receiving core. They're not the greatest thing of all time. But you have Stephon Diggs, Mac Hollins. You got a couple of the rookies, DeMario Douglas. They have potential. And Travion Henderson yesterday, he had an absolute coming out party. He finally was able to put on display what his talents are to bestow. He was able to run the ball. He had 14 carries for 147 yards. He averaged 10.5 yards a carry. He hit his head on the goalpost twice on long runs. Drake May, 16 for 31. It wasn't his best passing day, but he was able to make plays when he needed to make plays. Had a couple of deep balls, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. That was the bad one in the red zone. That was his worst play today. But he ended up having a passer rating of 89. And when I watched this game yesterday, I think the Patriots are absolutely legit. I trust Mike Vrabel, and I think this team is going to get better in the future, this season and the season after. Because when you look at this roster, they don't have like these star players. It's Drake May and the collective on defense. Outside of maybe Christian Gonzalez, they don't have like this bona fide stud that you can just point to, be like, oh yeah, that guy's an all-pro. That's not on defense. They just have a collective bunch, and that's what really makes me love this team. And I feel like they're just complete, and they play like a complete unit in comparison to the Buffalo Bills, which we are going to discuss in the very next topic. But we have to give a lot of credit to the Crafts. They hit an absolute home run. The Kraft family, they got a lot of crap for giving up and firing Gerard Mayo last year. Got a lot of crap for it in the media. But when you have a coach out there like Mike Vrabel, who was available, it's just an absolute no-brainer. I mean, that is the coach that you want to set a ball club, because he took a team like the Titans to the AFC Championship game with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. You want that guy in your locker room and coaching your team and part of your organization. So shout out to Robert Kraft. Just an absolutely phenomenal job getting Mike Vrabel in there. Now let's move on to the Bucs. The Bucs will make the playoffs, do not get me wrong. But when you watch this team, they just feel absolutely incomplete. Like, they really do. Outside of the very first possession, the opening drive where, Baker Mayfield just went down the field without ease, it felt like the offense just looks hard. You could tell that they're really missing their pieces. Mike Evans going to be out to the end of the year. Chris Godwin, we're still waiting to see what's going to, when is he going to be back? So you got Emeka Mbuka, you got Sterling Shepard, Tez Johnson. These guys, they're pretty good players, but it feels like Baker just does not trust them. And Baker is playing hero ball. He was really targeting Cade Otton a lot yesterday on big downs. And me personally, nothing against Cade Otton. He is not a player that I want to target on big downs. No slouch against him. I think he's pretty decent tight end. But it feels like Baker, at the end of the day and at the end of games, feels like he has to play hero ball. Baker was 28 for 43, 273 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. It looks all fine and dandy. But when you really watch the game, they're missing the Bucky Irvins. They're missing Mike Evans. They're missing Chris Godwin. You're missing all these key players. So when I watch the Bucs, they look like a playoff team. They just look like a team who feels like when they get to the end of the season, they're not going to make it through healthy. They're not even healthy on the defensive side of the ball. And granted, yesterday on defense, I thought they played pretty well. They were able to keep the Patriots in check for the most part. They were able to make some plays and get some big key stops. But when you just see the Buccaneers, they need to get healthy fast, like stat. I think they're going to win their division. You got the Falcons and the Panthers. Don't get me started about the Saints. So your division is pathetic. You're going to make the playoffs easily. You're going to get a home playoff game. After that, you're going to get I think based on how the NFC is stacking up, you might get a 4 seed. At the best, I think you're going to get a 3 seed. So you're going to get the 5 seed or the 6 seed matchup. And given how stacked the NFC East, not the NFC East, but the NFC conference is, that matchup is not going to be an easy one. So the Buccaneers are a good team. Do not get me wrong. And when I was talking last week, I was like, okay, I want to see the Baker Mayfield conversation get back, things of that nature. Yes. But it just feels like to me, the Bucs just, in comparison, when we see teams like Seattle, Philadelphia, both of those teams are healthy. And even the Rams, all those teams are healthy. And from top to bottom, I would prefer their roster over the Buccaneers. If the Buccaneers had their heavy hitters all together, maybe I'm having a different story. But I don't know how healthy Mike Evans is going to be after, getting ready for the playoffs, or Chris Godwin, and even defensively. That is just my takeaway with the Buccaneers. They are a great team, but they just feel like they are super incomplete. But yesterday, that game was pretty good. That game was very entertaining, and it was just a heavyweight matchup between two great teams. And both of those teams are going to be in the playoffs and contending for a Super Bowl towards the end of the season, going into January and February. There's no doubt about that in my mind. So yesterday, and we're going to discuss the other team that was in the Patriots division. And I didn't have this game on my radar, like, at all. But we were able to see on display yesterday my problems I've had all season when it pertains to the Buffalo Bills. I want to discuss this part later on. I might get to it tomorrow because I might do a small mini show. But we saw the reports going into yesterday's action. You know, it came out roughly around 9-10. Anybody at the wide receiver position. Like, absolutely, like nobody. So, this game really signified my problems with the Buffalo Bills. I don't love this squad. I don't love the unit that they're putting out there week in and week out at the wide receiver position. They do not have a reliable wide receiver. And then when I look at the game, I'm sitting there like, what do the Buffalo Bills do well? They don't have a passing game. Keon Coleman, he's like a mixed bag. You don't know what you're going to get out of him week in and week out. I mean, yesterday at the receiver position, Keon Coleman, 3 catches for 46 yards. Khalil Shakir, 7 catches for 58 yards. Dalton Kincaid got hurt at one point in the game, and he was out for the rest of the game. Jackson Halls, Dawson Knox, you got a pretty good tight end core. And you ran for 4 yards a carry yesterday, but you only gave James Cook 13 carries because the game got away from you. And I'm watching this game, I'm like, what do the Bills do well? Run the football, maybe. But if they're behind, which they were yesterday because their defense is pretty much hit or miss. They looked phenomenal against the Kansas City Chiefs last week, and then this week against Tua Tagovailoa and the Dolphins, it just felt like Tua had an absolute party yesterday against this defense. But when you watched him, going in and we're talking about playoffs, we're like, what teams, like, are they going to be dominant in playoffs? I don't see the Bills doing that because Josh Allen, and we've seen it the last couple of weeks, ever since they came off, they played Atlanta and, went to the bye. They had the 2-game losing streak going into the bye. And we had the problems when it feels like Josh Allen is starting to press. And we saw it yesterday. Heck, Josh Allen fumbled the ball, running the ball. They ran a QB sneak 15, and Josh Allen dragged him 15, 20 yards up the field, and he fumbled the football. James Cook fumbled yesterday. It's just, we can say it's a stinker. And granted, the Buffalo Bills has not lost to the Miami Dolphins in like 1,100 days. That's how long. That's the last time the Bills lost to the Dolphins. It's it's your division opponent. Yes, I understand all these things, and all these type of storylines. But when you really, really watch the game, and you compare the Bills to the other teams, like in their own conference, when you talk about the Patriots, when you talk about the Ravens, when you talk about the Chiefs. What do the Bills do well? They don't do anything well. I don't think they play great defense. They don't have a passing game. They were talking about yesterday in the broadcast how Khalil Shakir, he's struggling to catch passes past the line of scrimmage. That's how bad the passing unit is for the Buffalo Bills. And Josh Allen just does not have, they don't have no type of verticality to their offense. Like, it's non-existent. And that's a component that was there with Stephon Diggs. And that was the reason why I feel like the Bills were able to make a good push like they did a couple of years ago. And it just feels like from when you compare their roster now, which I don't think this is a good roster. I mean, defensively, Jordan Poyer's back there. He's old. Matt Milano can't stay on the field, nor Ed Oliver. You got a pretty good linebacker, the Harrison kid. Your first round pick at cornerback. He got an interception yesterday. They have some pieces, but when you compare this team to the team of the past, it really feels like, can you trust the Bills to make a playoff run? I don't think so. And it feels like the Bills have really missed their window because when you really compare that to the Bills and the Patriots, and the next time the Bills play the Patriots, it's going to be in Foxborough. So when you ask me going forward, would I rather buy into Buffalo or buy into the Patriots? I'm going to buy into the Patriots. When the Patriots have had stinkers this year, it feels like they've mustered up a way to at least make the game competitive. Yesterday, the Bills look absolutely awful. They let Miami score 30, and Miami was having an absolute field day the week after firing their head coach Chris Greer, and the offense just went crazy. Tua Tagovailoa, he was 15 for 21. He only threw the ball 21 times for 173 yards. He still threw 2 interceptions and 2 touchdowns. And even with Tua playing that awful, you couldn't do anything because Devon Achane went roughshod. He had 2 touchdowns. Jalen Waddle, he threw that nice ball to Jalen Waddle, but I've wanted the Bills, and this is why I talked about this, and I didn't even really watch this game to a T. But I just saw the score, and when I was watching Red Zone, I was sitting there like, what? Are you serious? This is how this game is going? So, when I watched Buffalo, I wanted to discuss them mainly because I have wanted this team to be in the Super Bowl for the last couple of years. Anybody outside of Kansas City, but I like Josh Allen, Sean McDermott. I like the crew, Joe Brady. It's tough not to love the unit, but man, when you watch games like that one yesterday, it is really hard to say this team is Super Bowl caliber. They're just not, and not even in their own division. And they're not playing well on the road. They've lost, out of the 3 games that they've lost, I want to say 2 of them were on the road and 1 of them was at home to New England, which was a division matchup. So you've lost all your games on the road. And how the conference standings is stacking up at the moment, you're not going to have a home playoff game. Unless the Patriots drop the ball, which they have the easiest schedule known to man going on for the rest of the season. But unless the Patriots drop the ball, you're not having a home playoff game. You're going to be on the road. So you're going to have to win 3 straight road games to get to the Super Bowl with this roster, with a Dalton Kincaid who really cannot stay healthy, and a wide receiver unit that is poor. I can't trust this team. And yesterday was pretty evident of the reason why. They're not good at all. Last night's game. Now, I had a lot of fun, discussing this game last time we were together because it felt like this was going to be the biggest game of the weekend. And boy, first half was rough. Absolutely rough to get through. But I was, I've watched the Steelers this year. I've not been in love with them, I'm a Chargers guy. So, obviously I'm going to be locked into Jim Harbaugh and the boys. And last week, I pretty much probed the statement. Is this how important is this game for the Chargers? It's very important because of your division. Denver is number 1, stacked playoff, and it's going to be hard to win and get into the playoffs with 3 teams coming out of your own division, and everybody still likes the Chiefs. So you got to win games. You got to stack wins. And on the other argument with the Steelers, it's like, okay, the Ravens have a chance to creep up on you a little bit, so you kind of need this game too. And lo and behold, what did we get yesterday? An absolute thriller in the first half, and then the Chargers broke away. But man, when I come out of watching this game and I was posing my talking points of what I wanted to talk about, can the Steelers turn their season around? Because I'm going to tell you guys right now, and he's a Hall of Famer, no doubt about it, first ballot. And he's played pretty good this year. But yesterday, I have to be totally honest, that was one of the worst Aaron Rodgers performances I've seen in a long time. It really was. When it come to the antics that was going on when he was missing passes, specifically the one in the first quarter where he missed DK Metcalf by 5 yards, and if he would have threw it on target, DK Metcalf is hitting his head in the end zone. Easy catch and pass. Aaron Rodgers misses it. He's feeling pressure. He was lofting a lot of balls last night, and it was just bad. The offense yesterday, period, was absolutely bad. But what came away with them offensively, and I wrote this down, I was like, the offense just needs to get with the times. You're a one-trick pony. On long downs yesterday, it felt like they were passing to DK Metcalf every time. It was DK Metcalf or nothing. And And we said the same thing about A.J. Brown up there in Philly. Can DK Metcalf run something else besides a slant? It felt like every time they were on long downs, Aaron Rodgers, let's go ahead and just throw this slant to DK Metcalf. And Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter, the great defensive minds that they are, they're like, okay, I'm going to put a little flat out there to cover that slant route that you want. And after that, Aaron Rodgers was curling up like a pony. It was bad yesterday offensively. And this was my problem with the Pittsburgh Steelers because I was like, I don't really trust the Pittsburgh Steelers to play that type of game that they played last week against the Colts. And I was like, it may be super rare to get the type of game that you got with the Colts. And so far, early on in the season, it was like, okay, the offense has been pretty good, but the defense sucks. And now, heading towards the second half of the season, the defense seems like they got it together, and then the offense just looks absolutely abysmal. So it was kind of the thing like, okay, the beginning of the season, the defensive unit, they're older, they're pretty new pieces all around. They've never played with each other as a collective. So it took a good half of the season to go ahead and get it all right, and I think they played pretty well last night, and they were able to make some plays. But offensively, it feels the opposite. It feels like, okay, everybody's figured us out. Arthur Smith, pretty vanilla play calling. Everybody seems to have figured us out. After the first half of the season, you're able to just make some wins, play great on offense. And then after that, you got nothing. Because outside of DK Metcalf, it's the same thing the problem I have with the Bills. Like, you have no pass catchers. They don't trust Calvin Watkins. He had an interception that hit him right in the hands, popped up, and it was picked off. I mean, look at these receiving numbers last night. Roman Wilson had 2 catches for 35 yards. He got, that was garbage time touchdown. DK Metcalf caught 3 balls for 35 yards. Pat Freiermuth caught 3 balls for 33 yards. Jaylen Warren, he caught 1 screen. I mean, this is just bad. Gianni Smith, he overhit Gianni Smith for an incomplete pass. He was wide open. And then, they were able to run the ball yesterday, but they couldn't do anything because in the second half, they were having to play catch up and they had to pass. It feels like the game, and Rodgers was 16 for 31, like 54% of his passes, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. It was absolutely abysmal, and he was sacked 3 times. It felt like the game plan yesterday for Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter was like, okay, let's make Aaron Rodgers throw the football. If we make Aaron Rodgers throw the football, we're going to have a great day. And we're going to win this ball game. And that is what they done yesterday. It was just bad. This has been my problem with the Steelers. And then when you see what Baltimore did yesterday, they got a big win. Now Baltimore is only a game behind. And I think coming out of that division, and so far, it looks like to me, unless something drastically happens on offense. Because I trust the defense. I think the defense has the capability to be pretty good. And then yesterday, they did a pretty good job on Justin Herbert for the most part. It just, at some point, when the game is that close and you're going into the fourth quarter, you can't really ask your defense to hold on much longer. They held the Chargers to roughly, going into the third quarter, the Chargers had 15 points. Going into the fourth quarter, the Chargers had 15 points. In the 21st century, in 2025, I say it all the time, you can't really ask for more out of a defense. Like, you held a team to 15 points going into the fourth quarter. At some point, you got to have some offense. And they don't have the weapons. They don't have a number 2 receiver you can count on. And Aaron Rodgers, he was pressured yesterday. And it was a rough outing. So, when we move on to the other spectrum of the conversation, when we really just talk about the Chargers, and y'all give me one, I always got to prepare my stuff because I'm doing everything on the fly. But when we look at the Chargers, I have to give them a lot of credit because I actually picked the Steelers to win this game because I really thought that the Steelers defense and that Chargers offensive line, I felt like it was going to be a tough matchup. And I really thought that given the performance that they had last week against the Colts, I thought the Steelers were going to be able to pull away and win this game close. I didn't think it was going to be a beatdown, but give credit to where credit is due. The Chargers got an absolute gutsy win all around. The defense was the workhorse, and they had to be yesterday because, Greg Roman offensively pretty much had this game plan like, okay, we're just going to play a quick pass. We can't sit back and play the long game like, we can't take our vertical routes with Quentin Johnston and Ladd McConkey and everybody. We're going to have to play the quick game. and we're going to have to make it work. Because yesterday it was very interesting. Keenan Allen really didn't get a lot of snaps. They were giving the rookie, Trey Harris, they were giving him a lot of passes. And it felt like that was the game plan. Like, okay, we got to play the quick pass. So who would you rather get in a quick pass, Trey Harris or Keenan Allen? So it was Trey Harris. And that was the game plan that they went for. And although Justin Herbert still got sacked 5 times, it felt like in the second half, Greg Roman was like, okay, we really need to invest more in the quick pass, because it felt like in the first half they were still trying to go vertical just a little bit, but they really locked in on the vertical. They really locked in on the quick pass game in the second half, and they were able to pull away with a win. Ladd McConkey got that little quick pass, little route on man-to-man coverage. He got in the end zone, and they were able to move the ball. Ladd McConkey had 107 yards. Quentin Johnston, outside of McConkey, didn't really get much production, but they were able to run the football. 25 carries, 95 yards. That quick offense that they ran yesterday is something that they're going to have to lean on, because they cannot protect Justin Herbert. I mean, you saw it evidently yesterday. TJ Watt, he had 0 pressures going into the second half, but he was able to start rushing the passer pretty good. Alex Highsmith, same thing. Cam Hayward, they were getting to the backfield. They were even deflecting a lot of Justin Herbert's passes. But they're going to have to lean into the quick game, and they're going to have to run the football. You got your lot, and this has been my problem with the Chargers, and the reason why I don't think, and we'll discuss it later, I don't know if they're going to have a deep playoff run, because you have both tackles out, Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. Your tackles are your security blanket in the NFL these days. That is going to keep a pass rush from getting to you. With them being out, and you're having to play the pass game, which is not the quick pass game, which is not Justin Herbert's strong suit. He has a strong arm and he has a bazooka. You want to stretch the field, and that's the type of offense you want to play. But you're not going to be able to play that. And I love the Chargers, but unless they develop a highly efficient run game and play dominant defense, I feel like this team is going to have a quick exit in the playoffs. The defense they had yesterday, yes, they played phenomenal defense, but they're not going to play offenses like that in the playoffs that are just anemic and just pathetic all around. I mean, my Lord, they didn't even have to worry about a wide receiver outside of DK Metcalf. Okay, you double him. So what about tight ends? In the NFL these days, you cannot run a 3-2 tight end set on long downs and expect to pick up first downs. Defenses are too quick. You're not going to have a tight end out there who's going to be able to outrun a corner or even a linebacker. So, I mean, I really can't take much away from the Chargers' performance last night defensively, because that's just how bad the Steelers are. But again, unless they develop a highly efficient run game, which is we've seen this season, they have not been able to do. I mean, even though Vidal had a touchdown and ran for 95 yards, he only averaged 3.8 yards a carry. So, when Omarion Hampton gets back, and unless something drastically changes, because we know Najee Harris is out for the rest of the season with, he tore his Achilles. But unless they develop a highly efficient run game, which I don't think they are going to, and I know John Harbaugh wants to do that because that's the type of game plan that he likes to play. But unless that happens and they play the type of defense they played yesterday, they're just going to be a quick exit. And that's what I took away. I hate to say that about the Chargers. The Chargers is one of my favorite teams to watch, and I want to pull for the Chargers because I love Justin Herbert, Ladd McConkey, and everybody else. But it's just the truth. I just don't think this team from top to bottom, roster-wise, in comparison to the other teams that they're going to have to play, they're not going to last, because their star quarterback and the type of offense that they need to play, which is a vertical type offense, they're not going to be able to play it because they can't protect Justin Herbert. And credit Jim Harbaugh. I mean, just absolutely continues to stack up gutsy wins. Your team's 7-3. You've had all these big injuries to the offensive side of the ball. It just shows you how great of a coach he is, and he just continues to win. And I feel like he, at some point in the span when he's with the Chargers, he's going to have Justin Herbert and the boys having some type of deep playoff success in the future. I feel it coming. I really do. All right, let's transition away from the Sunday night action. Now let's circle back to the morning action. I didn't really plan on talking about this game, but this team, the Colts just continue to fly under the radar for me. It is a team that I don't cover Hardly at all. But, they were on prime time yesterday, 9 o'clock. I was able to watch them. And, I was in church, obviously, so I was watching sporadically. But, the game went to overtime, and I was able to watch roughly towards the end of the game. And this was my takeaway. How good are the Colts, and is Penix the guy? That was like my main headline coming out of this game. Now let's just talk about the Colts, give them their flowers. How good is Jonathan Taylor? Like, Jonathan Taylor yesterday, I talk about Ezekiel Elliott a lot and how Ezekiel Elliott was the type of running back that Jonathan Taylor is. And it feels like with all the workhorsemanship and the what's the word I'm looking for? The bell cow back, so to speak, that Jonathan Taylor is and that Zeke was. It feels like Jonathan Taylor is not missing a beat. Last couple years ago, he was dominant. Last year, not so much. But this year, it just feels like he's just hit another level. I mean, there was a stat that came out from Diana Rossini, and it pretty much said to the extent where there's only a couple of players that have been able to hit over 240 rushing yards multiple times in their career when there's only a couple of players. But yesterday, Jonathan Taylor ran for 240 yards, had 3 touchdowns. He was just absolutely phenomenal. And the Colts roster is good. But when I watched him, and we saw it yesterday, they have the pieces. They have the wide receiver. The wide receivers, you had Michael Pittman, who didn't even have a good game yesterday, but we know the capability he has. Alec Pierce, he can make some plays. Tyler Warren is an absolute stud. He's going to be a great tight end in this league. And Josh Downs as well. So you have all these key pieces on the offense. And the offensive line is a great unit. It's a top 3 unit specifically in the NFL, even though they didn't have a great day yesterday. But it's going to come down to one guy. And his name is Daniel Jones. His name is Daniel Jones. Last week, the Colts haven't had a bye. So actually they have a bye going into this week. So you're 8-2 going into the bye. You really can't ask much 10 weeks into the season. And, we know Daniel Jones, he's had a good year, things of that nature. But last week was kind of like, okay, is this an anomaly from Daniel Jones of having a bad game? Or is this possibly a sign to come? Because, we have people like Nick Wright. He was basically saying like, okay, it feels like at some point, this is the same. The Colts felt like the Saints of last year where they're going to turn into pumpkins. Definitely not the case because the Saints at this point in the season last year, they only had 3 wins, I think, roughly. But it seemed like yesterday, Daniel Jones felt like he wants to go to pumpkin. He didn't fully do it, but he had some multiple instances yesterday where he kind of went full pumpkin. He had the fumble that he fumbled and he didn't lose. I don't think he lost it. But and he had that bad interception to Jesse Bates. That was just a bad throw. But Daniel Jones was 19 for 26, 1 touchdown, 1 reception. He had a passer rating of 100 and he had a quarterback rating of 31. That's not good. And he threw the ball pretty well. Tyler Warren had 8 catches for 99 yards. Alec Pierce, he threw a nice deep ball to Alec Pierce. That was a really good throw by Daniel Jones. So Daniel Jones, he had the moments of pumpkin watch. But here's the alarming thing though. I didn't even know he fumbled this many times because I told you I didn't watch this game play for play. Daniel Jones had 3 fumbles yesterday and he lost 1. I thought he lost 1. I thought I remember seeing the game and I saw Daniel Jones lose 1. So he lost 1. And that is something that you can't turn the ball over 4 times. Well, sorry, they didn't turn it over 4 times, but you had 4 turnover-worthy plays. You had the pass and you fumbled the ball 3 times. You just cannot have that out of Daniel Jones. I want to love Daniel Jones. But this type of performance, and now that I'm speaking, we can kind of compare this Colts team to possibly maybe the Vikings of last year. You have this insane roster. I mean, you have the defense, you have the wide receivers. I mean, you have everything at your disposal, but everything comes down to the quarterback. And we saw last season that going towards the playoffs and the last game of the season and into the playoffs, Sam Darnold just straight pumpkin. And that's going to be don't get it twisted. Don't think I'm sitting here slandering on Daniel Jones, but this season, I'm still skeptical of Sam Darnold. Now, I love the Seahawks. Yesterday, they looked absolutely fantastic. But I'm still skeptical about Sam Darnold for many, many reasons. But defensively, it's the same case and the same comparison with the Vikings of last year. The team's phenomenal. Defensively, they're great. They have all the weapons at their disposal. I don't know if I love the Colts to really compete for a Super Bowl this year. They are a good team, don't get me wrong. But the one thing that I can call back to, and this is the same case that can be made for before the Chargers and the Patriots that I just discussed. Their conference is just mediocre. I don't really think one team in this conference is just like head over heels over the other. You have the Colts, Patriots, Chargers, Ravens, Chiefs, Broncos. Like all these teams that I named, they're not like, okay, they're like super unbeatable. Like they're, like a couple of teams in the NFC. So that is like the good thing that is riding for the Colts right now. So the Colts are good. They're going into bye 8-2. I'm looking forward to seeing more of them later on in the season. Now, this is the reason why I wanted to mainly talk about this topic. Let's circle to the Falcons. Is Michael Penix the guy? Now, I didn't make this topic to absolutely crap on Michael Penix. He's young. He has time. He can develop. But man, the Falcons really irritate me. And I literally wrote this down. The Falcons absolutely irritate me for this main reason. You have this roster that I think is very good. I think their defense is underrated. They're leading like top 5 in sacks. The defense is good. They can get to the quarterback. And they even got to Daniel Jones yesterday. Daniel Jones was sacked 7 times. Like the defense is actually really good. And you have Bijan Robinson, you have Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney. Like, they have weapons on this roster. And the offensive line is actually pretty decent. And it seems like to me, yesterday, and it was a glaring issue, Michael Penix was just missing gimmies. I was sitting there like, and specifically late in the game, where the Colts were able to get the ball back on that third down throw, that little in route that Penix were throwing, that Penix threw up the middle of the field. I can't remember who he was throwing it to. But I think it was 89, Charlie. I remember the number being 80-something, so it might have been that Charlie Moore kid. But he threw it on the in route and threw it 3 yards behind him, and it almost got picked off. I'm sitting like, Penix, what are we doing? And there was a couple of out routes near the end of the game on the final drive in overtime, and Penix was missing passes. I'm like, what? That was the thing that everybody was banking on with Michael Penix. It was the idea. I was like, okay, this kid is super accurate. He throws a hard football. But these last couple of games and many stints this season, we've not seen that with Michael Penix. That's the reason why he's been benched twice, if I remember correctly. I know he was benched in Carolina, but I think there's been another time this year where he was benched as well. So Kirk Cousins has been in there twice. Well, no, I think he was benched the one time, and then he got hurt the one game, so that's the reason why Kirk Cousins played. But outside of that, I don't love Michael Penix. And that's the reason why last Friday, and my daddy gave me crap for it yesterday when we was watching the Falcons. He's like, Jayden, why would you even suggest the Falcons trade for Kyler Murray? Because you can't wait to develop this quarterback. This roster is a win now roster. Like they really are. And you got to take advantage of a division that isn't that good. You're not really sold on Carolina. The Buccaneers, who knows how healthy they can be in the future. Mike Evans may not be there after this year. His future is up in question. Who knows? So this is a window that you got to win. And this is, and I wrote this down, you're 3-6 as a team, and you have no first-round pick going into the 2026 NFL Draft. So they're investing everything into this team for a win-now scenario. You just don't trade into the first round and get all these pass rushers and stuff and not feel like you're an all-in team that you can, you have the roster capable of winning the Super Bowl. That is like, spending that first-round pick to get a pass rusher like that is like an all-in move. And it was a smart move by the Falcons organization because James Pierce has been a baller this year, and they've had they've gotten the most sacks and had one of the best pass rushers in the league. But you just have too many weapons. I mean, and I don't love the play calling. There was a point they had 3rd and 2, and they tried to run a wide receiver screen to Bijan Robinson. They're at times they can be way too Bijan Robinson reliant. And Bijan didn't even have a great game yesterday. I mean, he ran the ball pretty decent, but he didn't have a factor in this game when you watch. He just didn't pop out on your screen. And Kyle Pitts, he just continues to be underutilized. Now Drake London, he's a stud, and it feels like Michael Penix and Drake London has had a good rapport. But man, the Falcons just continue to just irritate me because this roster is just way too good. And at some point, we may have to question Michael Penix unless he, changes things around. Second year, it's going to be his first full year starting at the quarterback position. And we're about to talk about this next quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. You have a team who's ready to win now. So I don't know how patient the organization may be until they make a move. And I teased it, of course. I'm going to talk about yesterday's action between the Ravens and the Vikings. I talked about this game in my preview last week. It was one of my matchups that I was excited to see, and it did not disappoint. And we were able to see at the forefront why the J.J. McCarthy conversation just continues to ramp up each week. Is this season disappointing for the Vikings? It absolutely is. And it's the same conversation we just had about the Falcons. You have this good roster. You have all these things around you. You have a phenomenal defense. And in the same conversation, you are absolutely disposed of or anemic at the quarterback position. You had a guy in Sam Darnold last year who you won 13, 14 games with. And he's on another team and he's balling. You had the same exact roster this year. You lost no key pieces. Pretty much everyone is there outside of Sam Darnold. And you don't know if you're going to be above 500 this year. And we have to be honest about J.J. McCarthy. He has flashes. And he's got me with this. He has these flashes of like, man, that's a good throw. That is a franchise quarterback type throw. But more often than not, he has the moments where it's like, what the crap was that? He threw 2 interceptions yesterday. And on both of the throws, I looked back and I was like, what the crap was that? Both of them were deep balls to Justin Jefferson. Just because the pocket collapses, J.J. McCarthy, and this is something that he may get better at. Just because the pocket collapses, you beat the rush and you invade the rush, doesn't mean you throw a 40-yard lollipop into double coverage. It just isn't a smart move. He's too inconsistent. There's been many clips already out that I've seen. He has corny situations. Like the video they showed last week in the locker room of the faces he was making when he got, the game ball from Kevin O'Connell. He just looked corny. And he had I don't know when this press conference was, but after yesterday's game, there was this video floating around of J.J. McCarthy in a media conference saying to the media, like, he has this alter ego that he gets into that he calls 9. It's just, again, another level of corny. He does not strike me as a franchise quarterback at the podium when you say weird stuff like that. And he just doesn't strike me as a quarterback, a franchise quarterback, or a leader of men when you're just having these cringy moments on the sideline and the cringy faces that you're making. And the stuff that he says, he just sounds cringy. And when you have people like Justin Jefferson and all these type of guys that you're trying to lead to win a ball game, I think more often than not, there's probably situations where Justin Jefferson is more of a leader than J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy Justin Jefferson is probably the grown-up in the room in the offensive meetings. Like, we don't have time to baby this kid. Like, we got to win now. And when you look at it from the grand scheme of things, it's like, man, is this season just already far gone? And it probably is. Unless at some point he flips a switch. Skull Nation, the players, and the coaches, they're going to be highly upset over this season. I mean, the defense is good. They did a pretty great job yesterday against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. They held them to kicking field goals. They even gave you a chance to have a game-tying drive at the end of the game against a Lamar Jackson-led offense with Derrick Henry and everyone else, Zay Flowers and John Harbaugh. I mean, that's all you can ask. I mean, you're at home. I mean, you had a good performance last week against the Lions, and then this week, it's like the stuff with J.J. McCarthy just continues to pile up. And I don't know if this marriage or experiment is going to work. Now, Kevin O'Connell is the quarterback guru. And that's the reason why I had the utmost of faith in J.J. McCarthy, because it's not that I have faith in J.J. McCarthy. I mean, J.J. McCarthy, you're talking about a guy in Michigan who played with Jim Harbaugh, whose identity was, okay, we're going to play great defense and we're going to run the football. You had Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards running the football. You had one of the best offensive line in the country. So it's not like you had to do anything to win that national championship that you won. And coming into the draft, it's like, this guy is a first-round pick? All right. And then the Vikings bought into it. But that has been my thing with J.J. McCarthy. I've really, and this is kind of like my eat crow situation, because I was like, man, I really trust in Kevin O'Connell and everybody to get this kid developed and have him ready to go. Even the first preseason game he had, and when he was throwing the football, it's like, man, what? This kid can be good. But he doesn't do that consistently. The moments are not consistent. He throws a great ball. Then after that, he throws a ball and like, dude, where was that at? Why was that so inaccurate? It's just the conversation. It's the roller coaster that I discussed last week and that they're currently having with J.J. McCarthy. And I don't know if this relationship is going to work. I really don't. And if you are a fan of the Vikings, you're sitting there like, man, did our front office like really screw this up? But that's what I took away from the Vikings. Now let's move off and pivot to the Ravens. Baltimore, pretty much, this is what I took away from it. They benefited off of the J.J. McCarthy incompetence and the turnovers that the Vikings had. They weren't good. They were okay. They were underwhelming on offense. They really couldn't score touchdowns yesterday. Lamar Jackson was 17 for 29, one touchdown, no interceptions. They just cannot run the ball successfully with Derrick Henry. Granted, they gave him 20 carries, which is what we want to see, but 3.8 yards a carry. Lamar was able to run the ball pretty well, as you can see here in the graphic. You know, he was able to run the football. But outside of that, again, receiving, passing the ball yesterday, outside of Zay Flowers, nothing. Isaiah Likely couldn't get going. Mark Andrews couldn't get going. Mark Andrews caught a touchdown, but they just don't have an explosive passing attack. And the offense was underwhelming. And they pretty much benefited from others being absolutely abysmal. And those others were pretty much J.J. McCarthy. Because J.J. McCarthy yesterday, in the defense, they gave up 5 catches for 124 yards to Jalen Naylor. They gave up 4 catches for 37 yards to Justin Jefferson, and Justin Jefferson was targeted 12 times, and he only caught 4 balls. Jordan Addison, he was targeted 11 times and caught 3 balls. Was that a lot to do with just J.J. McCarthy being bad, or they were out there strapping up on defense? I think it was more about J.J. McCarthy being bad and making bad decisions, trying to force the ball to Justin Jefferson. But look, the Ravens, they're not a team that I love. I'm not infatuated over. I really prefer the Chiefs over them. I might even prefer the Bills over them just a smidge. Even though they are not good on offense, I think the Broncos could be a better team than them as well. Definitely the Patriots. There's just a couple of teams that I think are better than the Ravens. The Ravens are benefiting having an absolutely atrocious division. You see the Steelers last night, and I look at the Ravens like, man, I mean, honestly, would I rather watch the Ravens in the playoffs than the Steelers? I'd actually really want to watch the Ravens. But this roster is just, the Ravens roster is okay. They really missed their opportunity a couple years ago in 2023 when they had the best defense in football. And they had the number 1 seed. Everything was running through Baltimore, and they dropped the ball against the Kansas City Chiefs. And this team, offensively, you don't know what you're getting week in, week out. Granted, they played a great defense yesterday, but man, it's just like Baltimore's just an okay team. They're not this team that everybody expected them to be. They're not the team that Vegas still has as like a top 5 team in the AFC to win the Super Bowl, favorites to win the Super Bowl. This team is not going to no Super Bowl. This team will be lucky enough to win 1 or 2 playoff games. 2 playoff games max. This team is not going to the AFC Championship game. Maybe I'll eat crow, and maybe I could be wrong. But when I see this team, I do not see a team that is going to win the AFC Championship game or even get to an AFC Championship game at that. And that's my takeaway with Ravens. They're not a good team. Sorry. They're not a bad team. They're not a great team. They're pretty meh. They're just mediocre. They really remind me of who's the team last year that I can think of at the top of my head. I can't think of anyone on the top of my head, but they just remind me of a team that feels like, okay, you're going to be one of those teams who's squeaking to the playoffs. And once you get to the playoffs, like you're going to be just so physically just out of sorts, getting into the postseason. You're mentally and physically just beat up and just distraught that when you get into the playoffs, I feel like they have an opportunity to get boat raced. Now, they're going to have a home playoff game. The only way they're going to win the division is if they have a home playoff game. But when I watch Baltimore, I'm like, I just don't love this team. And that was pretty much my takeaway from that game overall. All right. One more topic that we are going to get to before we wrap up today's show. Thank you all for joining me who is still tuned in. We have a pretty good matchup. Not even a pretty good. We have a very good matchup tonight with the Eagles and the Packers on Monday Night Football. This is pretty much a marquee matchup basing off last season. They had the matchup that they had in Brazil. And they faced each other in the playoffs last year. If I remember correctly, they did play each other in the playoffs. And, here's my takeaways for both teams, pretty much. And I didn't have this part of my picks of the week, but I am picking the Eagles to win this game. You got Eagles +1. I feel like it's really a no-brainer. Because here's why. The Eagles can have an absolute field day on defense if they run the ball. It's going to be cold. And the weather in Green Bay pretty much plays into your favor. And that is running the football. If you do that, and if defensively you force Jordan Love to beat you, the Eagles without a doubt can win this game. And you're coming off of a bye. That is another reason why I absolutely love Philly in this situation. Like, I have no doubt in my mind, I really do think Philly will win this game. And there's another thing that I saw earlier today on First Take where they were talking about the thing with Peter Schrager bringing up the tush push and things of that nature. Yeah, that's like another thing. Because, the Packers are like the team that really brought up the idea of banning the tush push. So we can have that component going on as well. The Eagles might be like, all right, got eccentric motivation to try and external motivation rather to try and win this game because you tried to ban the tush push. Oh yeah, we're gonna run a tush push on you like 5 or 6 times a night. We're just gonna dominate you at home. But another reason why that this game can be very interesting because we're talking about a Packers team who is coming off an absolutely embarrassing loss at home against the Carolina Panthers, a Carolina Panthers team who lost to the Saints yesterday. Yes, that Carolina Panthers team. So we have that aspect going on as well. So you can really say, the Packers have a chance to win this game because they have a good defense and they have an offense that is very opportunistic. But the Packers need to have an identity. They need to find an identity and find their identity in this game. They need, in my opinion, and this is my personal opinion, I feel like they need to play through Josh Jacobs because Jordan Love will and can throw you out of a football game. This is a Eagles defense that is opportunistic in the back end. We know that their corners, Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, they have an opportunity to pick you off. So they are no slouches on their back end. They're not the best, but they're pretty opportunistic. And this defense is opportunistic at taking the ball away. Jordan Love poses and gives that opportunity. And we saw what Jordan Love was able to do last week against the Panthers. I just do not truly love Jordan Love, and we can tell why Matt LaFleur has the training wheels on when it pertains to Jordan Love and the offense. We can tell. So if you're going to keep the training wheels on Matt LaFleur, how about just run the offense through Josh Jacobs? It feels like the logical option to me. That's my personal opinion. And another thing is, honestly, and this was my final point that I really thought of, this feels like an absolute must-win for the Packers. Just when you think about it, you're coming off an embarrassing loss at home against the Carolina Panthers. You already have a bye week, so it's not like you can, at some point in a couple of weeks, just reset and try to pick it up going into the playoffs. You've already had a bye. So we got to continue to get better. And their schedule is brutal. They got Philly tonight. They still have to play the Vikings. That's an opportunistic game. We know how J.J. McCarthy and them can be. You still got to play the Bears twice. You got to play Denver. You got to play Baltimore, a Baltimore team who is going to be in the run, going to be trying to make the playoffs come that game. And then you have Minnesota. And when you look at your division, they're first place in the NFC North right now. But when you look at it from the grand scheme of things, I don't know why it's not letting me look up the NFC North here. But I'm going to look at the NFC North. In the NFC North, you have the Detroit Lions, who currently have 6 wins. They're 6-3. The Bears are 6-3. So you have 3 teams altogether, including the Packers, who are contending for a playoff spot. And giving that schedule that the Packers have, they need to stack some wins. And this game, because of that reason, and the reasons I pointed out earlier about having to find an identity and things of that nature, that's why I really think this game is a must-win, without a doubt, for the Green Bay Packers. So it's going to be an interesting one that we're going to get to tonight. I have, and this was a part of my picks of the week, but I'm going to tell you who I have. I have the Philadelphia Eagles. Not a great thing to say because, I don't like cheering for the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm kind of cheering for the Eagles too because that Packers pick that we get needs to get a little bit higher than where it's at. So that's another reason why I'm pulling for the Eagles. Any other time I wouldn't be pulling for the Eagles, but they're playing the Packers, and I despise the Packers as well. But I have the Eagles +1 tonight, and I think they're going to win. I think they're going to run the ball very well with Saquon Barkley and company, and they're going to be able to throw the ball when they need to because that offensive line is good. They have the best tackle duo in the league, so that Michael Parsons, Rashad Gary dynamic, it might be subdued to a slight degree, and that's why I have the Eagles winning this game. And ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of today's show. Thank you all for joining me. We capped off roughly right at an hour. But if you did enjoy today's show, be tuned in for my next show on Wednesday or tomorrow. I think I might shoot a little small one tomorrow, just talk about a little bit of subjects that I couldn't cram into today's show because I tried to get out of here quick and easy. But I'm gonna discuss some of the things that I discussed probably tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. Subscribe, tap the like button, and check out the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Be on the lookout for my repost and share the channel to a friend. I love you all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day. It's Monday. It's the roughest day of the week, to get through. So I hope you all are getting through it today. I love you all so much. Peace, love, and positivity always, y'all. See you.